Hello everyone, thank you for being here. Hope you have a relaxing and comfortable time with Stories for Happy Life channel. The morning sun painted streaks of gold across the asphalt as Marcus Bennett turned his old Ford pickup into the parking lot of Elite Auto Gallery, a luxury dealership nestled in the upscale suburbs of Atlanta. It was early, the sky clear, and a gentle southern breeze swirled through the tall, carefully pruned trees that bordered the expansive dealership grounds. Row after row of pristine vehicles gleamed under the rising sun, each one representing not just wealth, but status and success. Marcus parked his pickup at the edge of the lot, where it stood out sharply against sleek European sedans, powerful muscle cars, and SUVs worth more than many people's homes. Today, Marcus wasn't wearing his typical sharp business attire. Instead, he'd deliberately chosen worn jeans, a faded black t-shirt, and work boots scuffed from weekend projects. This choice was strategic. Marcus wanted to see how the dealership operated when no one knew who he was. 3 months prior, Marcus quietly purchased Elite Auto Gallery. His acquisition had been strategic and kept confidential at his request. This anonymity allowed Marcus the unique opportunity to observe the culture of his new business from the perspective of an everyday customer, devoid of assumptions based on his name or title. Stepping from the pickup, Marcus took a deep breath, absorbing the quiet morning atmosphere. The showroom itself was a masterpiece of modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows sparkling in the sun, a sleek facade of steel and glass designed to exude exclusivity and class. He walked slowly toward the entrance, observing carefully. Already, he noticed 2 sharply dressed salespeople inside, a man and a woman, engrossed in conversation at the reception desk. Through the windows, he could see the woman laughing at something her colleague said. She was dressed impeccably in a tailored navy blazer and matching skirt, her blonde hair pulled back in a professional bun. Her name badge caught the morning sunlight, displaying Nicole, Senior Sales Manager. Marcus pulled the heavy glass door open and stepped into the cool, conditioned air of the dealership. Immediately, the scent of expensive leather and car polish greeted him, mixing with a hint of freshly brewed coffee. The showroom was silent, but for a subtle jazz melody drifting softly from hidden speakers, giving it the atmosphere of a private club. His entry drew the attention of the 2 sales associates at the desk. Their laughter quieted instantly, and Marcus felt their eyes assess him, taking in his casual clothes and humble demeanor. Nicole glanced at her coworker, whispering something that made them both smirk slightly. Marcus pretended not to notice and instead slowly walked around the showroom, casually inspecting the luxury vehicles lined up like prized artworks. He paused by a shimmering black sedan, running his finger gently along its sleek curves. From the corner of his eye, he observed Nicole exchange another brief glance with her colleague, an unspoken message passing between them. Marcus continued his deliberate stroll, taking mental notes. Their lack of immediate greeting spoke volumes about how they evaluated potential customers. After a few minutes, Nicole finally detached herself from her spot behind the reception desk, clipboard tucked firmly under her arm, heels clicking against polished marble as she approached. Her smile was tight, her eyes critical. "Good morning," she began, her voice professional but noticeably cool. "Welcome to Elite Auto Gallery. May I help you?" Marcus met her gaze with a friendly smile. "Morning," he replied calmly, his southern drawl mild but noticeable. "Just looking around right now, thank you." Nicole hesitated slightly, glancing quickly at Marcus's attire before looking back at his face. Her smile grew forced, a practiced customer service mask slipping into place. "Are you considering a new purchase today?" Marcus paused, feigning thoughtfulness as he surveyed the showroom. "Possibly," he said casually. "I was curious about this place, heard good things." Nicole nodded slowly, her eyes betraying skepticism. "I see. Well, just to let you know, Elite Auto Gallery specializes in high-end luxury vehicles. Our selection might be a bit exclusive. Marcus allowed the statement to hang in the air, understanding the implication perfectly, but remaining outwardly unaffected. Exclusive, huh? He asked gently, keeping his expression neutral. Well, guess I'm in the right place. Nicole pursed her lips slightly, clearly uncomfortable yet professional enough to mask it. Certainly, she responded crisply. Feel free to look around. Let me know if you have any serious inquiries. She turned briskly on her heel, the clicking sound of her steps echoing faintly as she retreated to her coworker, leaving Marcus alone among the dazzling displays of automotive opulence. He watched her go, a flicker of disappointment passing through him. Nicole had failed the first test of elite service culture, but Marcus wasn't there to jump to conclusions. Not yet. He leaned thoughtfully against a polished sports coupe, pretending to admire its chrome wheels. Inside, his mind was busy formulating the next phase of his plan. Today was going to be a crucial test, not just for Nicole, but for everyone who worked at Elite Auto Gallery. Marcus intended to observe carefully, making sure he fully understood the environment he now owned. Because Marcus Bennett wasn't just buying cars and showrooms, he was investing in people, values, and reputations, and it was essential that those values align with his own. He glanced again toward Nicole, who was now whispering discreetly to her coworker, their furtive glances betraying their continuing assumptions. Marcus smiled quietly to himself, settling comfortably into his undercover role. This visit was only just beginning. Marcus took his time strolling around the showroom, carefully observing the displays. Gleaming sports cars, luxurious sedans, and powerful SUVs, all meticulously presented. Despite the inviting elegance of the showroom, he felt the coolness of the staff's glances following him, particularly from Nicole, who hovered nearby, clipboard firmly in hand. Eventually, Marcus paused by a stunning crimson SUV. Its polished exterior reflected his image clearly, the hoodie and jeans contrasting sharply with the pristine luxury of the vehicle. He reached out, gently brushing the driver's side door handle, appreciating its craftsmanship. Before he could fully admire it, Nicole appeared at his side once again, her expression now edged with thinly veiled annoyance. Her clipboard was clutched defensively, her voice carefully restrained. "Sir, please don't touch the vehicles," she said, the politeness barely masking her irritation. Marcus withdrew his hand slowly, offering an easy, apologetic smile. "My apologies," he replied, voice calm, "just appreciating the design." Nicole's smile was forced. "I understand. However, these vehicles require careful handling. Perhaps it would be best if I guided you toward a selection more suited to your needs." Marcus tilted his head slightly, genuinely curious about how far she'd push this judgment. "And what exactly do you assume my needs are?" She hesitated only momentarily, but it was enough to reveal discomfort. "I simply mean our cars are exclusive, tailored for certain clientele who typically have specific financial profiles." He nodded thoughtfully, absorbing her subtle implications. "Specific financial profiles," he repeated slowly. "And you think I don't match that profile?" Nicole cleared her throat, visibly uncomfortable but pressing on. "Sir, I'm merely trying to save your time. Our inventory begins in the high six figures. I could happily recommend a dealership nearby that has pre-owned, budget-friendly vehicles. They might better fit your situation." Marcus felt an internal wince, not from embarrassment but disappointment. Nicole's assumptions were clear and unwavering. He remained composed, though he allowed a subtle intensity to creep into his tone. "My situation," he echoed, eyes meeting hers directly. "That's quite an assumption, isn't it?" Nicole shifted, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. "Look, I'm simply trying to be honest. Experience has taught me that most people who dress casually," she glanced down briefly at his worn jeans and boots, "are typically window shopping or looking for something more affordable." Marcus didn't break eye contact, his voice still even but firm. Honesty is important, and your honesty reveals a lot. Her face flushed slightly, irritation now evident. I don't mean any offense. We have to prioritize customers who are prepared to make substantial purchases. He folded his arms casually, smiling faintly. Tell me, how exactly do you determine who is prepared and who isn't? Clothing? Cars they arrive in? Nicole's patience seemed to snap, her professionalism wearing thin. We all make judgments, Mr. Bennett, Marcus supplied simply without elaboration. Mr. Bennett, she continued firmly, I'm just following protocol and experience. If you're seriously interested, I'd be happy to arrange an appointment after proper pre-qualification. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to either choose from a more suitable selection or kindly leave the premises. Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing her ultimatum without visible anger. Interesting. Pre-qualification. Yes, standard policy, she replied curtly, confidence returning now that she felt justified. He leaned in slightly, dropping his voice to a measured tone that required her full attention. So, your protocol is to prejudge potential customers based on appearance? Did I get that right? Nicole froze momentarily, visibly caught off guard by his directness. Around them, the subtle hum of other conversations had quieted, sensing the shift in energy. Her eyes flicked to her coworker, who was now watching from the front desk with visible discomfort. She forced a strained smile. I wouldn't call it prejudging. I'd call it practicality. Experience teaches us certain lessons about who's likely to buy. Experience, Marcus echoed thoughtfully. Funny how experience can become prejudice without us noticing. Nicole stiffened visibly, her shoulders pulling back defensively. Sir, I think we're misunderstanding each other. Perhaps it's best if you leave now. Marcus sighed gently, shaking his head. He'd witnessed enough. Nicole, can I speak with your supervisor? Or perhaps the owner? She looked momentarily taken aback, then smirked slightly, regaining her composure. I don't believe that will be necessary or possible today. The owner rarely visits unannounced and our supervisor is out for meetings. Marcus nodded patiently. You're sure? Maybe you should give them a call. She laughed lightly, though without humor, dismissing the suggestion entirely. I assure you they're very busy individuals. Marcus smiled calmly, unfazed. I bet they'd want to speak with me. She raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. And why would that be? Marcus casually reached into his jeans pocket and pulled out his phone. Let me show you. Nicole's eyes narrowed suspiciously, watching as he scrolled through contacts and placed the call. Good morning, this is Marcus, he said quietly into the phone, eyes briefly locking with Nicole's confused gaze. Yes, I'm at Elite Auto Gallery right now. We've had a bit of a misunderstanding. Could you have James meet me here as soon as possible? Yes, I appreciate that. He ended the call smoothly and tucked the phone away. Nicole stared at him, suddenly unsure, her clipboard shaking slightly in her hands. Who did you just call? She demanded, her voice wavering. Marcus smiled gently, calmness radiating from him. Someone who can clear this all up. She visibly paled, eyes widening in disbelief. Around the showroom, an electric stillness took hold, as everyone sensed the gravity of what was happening. Marcus turned back towards the beautiful SUV he'd admired, gently tapping his fingers against the glossy surface. You know, he said softly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Nicole to hear, you really shouldn't judge people before you truly know them. Nicole stood frozen, utterly speechless, as the showroom doors opened and a distinguished man in a crisp suit hurried inside. Clearly recognizing Marcus immediately. The arrival drew every eye in the dealership, heightening the already thick tension. Marcus glanced at Nicole again, watching as the realization fully dawned on her. He felt no anger or bitterness, only a quiet resolve. This encounter, as uncomfortable as it had become, was exactly what he'd needed to understand what kind of culture existed within Elite Auto Gallery. It was clear that significant change was necessary, and Marcus was prepared to lead it, starting right here, right now. The man who'd entered the showroom moved swiftly, extending his hand with a sincere smile. His tailored suit, pristine and expensive, was a stark contrast to Marcus's casual attire. All eyes in the dealership shifted, fully fixated on this unexpected encounter. "Marcus," the man said warmly, shaking his hand firmly. "Sorry I couldn't greet you personally when you arrived. I was finishing some paperwork upstairs." "No worries, James," Marcus responded calmly, his tone friendly and unhurried. "I know you're busy." James Crawford was the dealership's managing director, respected and well-known to everyone at Elite Auto Gallery. His demeanor was friendly but carried an undeniable authority. As James turned toward Nicole, his expression became carefully neutral, hiding a clear undercurrent of disappointment. "Nicole," James said, addressing her politely but firmly, "I see you've met Mr. Bennett." Nicole's voice shook slightly as she replied, clearly intimidated by the sudden revelation. I have. But I wasn't aware who he was, James. I'm sorry." "Mr. Bennett," James interrupted gently but decisively, "is our dealership's new owner." Nicole's eyes widened with shock, her clipboard nearly falling from her trembling hands. Her voice cracked, barely audible. "Owner?" Marcus stepped forward slightly, his posture relaxed, but his presence filling the room. He offered Nicole a gentle nod. "Yes, Nicole, Marcus Bennett, owner of Elite Auto Gallery as of last week." The showroom fell silent, the weight of the revelation settling over the staff who had now stopped pretending to be busy. Several glanced nervously between Marcus, James, and Nicole, uncertain of what would happen next. Marcus calmly turned to address the entire showroom, raising his voice slightly so everyone could hear clearly. "I didn't come here today to play games or trick anyone. I wanted to see firsthand how this dealership treats every potential customer who walks through its doors, regardless of appearance. Today, unfortunately, revealed a lot." Nicole's eyes lowered to the polished floor, shame radiating from her posture. Marcus saw this but didn't press further. Instead, he addressed the staff again. "Everyone here must understand that the core of any successful business isn't just the quality of its products. It's about how we treat people, especially when we think no one's watching." A murmur of agreement rippled softly among the staff, though many were too stunned or uncomfortable to openly respond. James stepped forward slightly, sensing the need for clarity. "Marcus is right. Elite Auto Gallery's reputation relies on our ability to offer impeccable service, fairness, and respect to everyone. Clearly, we have work to do." Marcus turned back to Nicole, who was now visibly shaken, her confident facade stripped away. He spoke quietly but firmly enough for the others to hear. "Nicole, I appreciate honesty, even when it's difficult. Tell me, had you known who I was, would you have treated me differently?" She swallowed hard, visibly shaken. "Yes, of course I would have. I judged you wrongly. I assumed you weren't worthy?" Marcus finished gently. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Yes," she admitted quietly. "I made assumptions based purely on your appearance. I realize now how unfair that was." Marcus gave her a slow nod, acknowledging her honesty. "We all have biases, Nicole. That's not what troubles me most. It's our refusal to acknowledge them that truly hurts us and those around us. Today wasn't just about being disrespected. It was about understanding the culture we've allowed to develop here. And that's something I intend to change immediately." The other employees exchanged subtle glances, beginning to understand the significance of Marcus's message. The shock on their faces slowly gave way to reflection. James, sensing the shift, stepped closer to Marcus. "Marcus, I can assure you we'll address this," James said with earnest conviction. "I take full responsibility for any gaps in our training. This is my oversight as much as anyone's." Marcus placed a reassuring hand briefly on James's shoulder. "I believe you. Accountability is where change starts. I appreciate you acknowledging it openly." James nodded gratefully. Thank you. I'll gather everyone in the conference room. We clearly have some important discussions ahead. Marcus gave a quiet nod of approval. Good. It's time we set some new expectations around here. As James began quietly directing employees toward the conference room, Marcus lingered momentarily near the SUV he'd admired earlier. Nicole hovered nearby, hesitant yet clearly determined to speak. "Mr. Bennett," she began softly, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I do want to sincerely apologize. What I did was unacceptable, and I promise you, I'll do everything in my power to fix this." Marcus studied her for a moment, considering her words carefully. "Nicole, this isn't about punishment. It's about growth and accountability. If you truly understand what happened here and commit yourself to change, you'll have no bigger supporter than me. Actions, not apologies, will show me how much you've learned." Nicole met his gaze, a quiet resolve slowly emerging. "I understand, and thank you for giving me the chance." Marcus offered her a brief, genuine smile, then turned and followed the rest toward the conference room. Today had started with a simple test, but had quickly become something deeper, a crucial moment of reckoning for the entire dealership. Marcus knew this would be the beginning of a long road, but it was a journey worth taking. He hadn't simply purchased a dealership. He'd invested in an opportunity to challenge biases, reshape perceptions, and build a culture rooted in respect. As he walked, he felt a newfound determination. Today was a powerful reminder. Real leadership meant confronting uncomfortable truths head-on and leading by example. The conference room filled quickly, a solemn quietness settling over the staff as they took their seats. Sunlight streamed through large glass windows, illuminating faces marked by curiosity, anxiety, and anticipation. Marcus stood calmly at the head of the long, polished table, hands resting gently on its smooth surface. He watched closely as Nicole entered last, quietly taking a seat near the back. Her eyes briefly met his, filled with a mix of embarrassment and determination. James closed the door, signaling the start of the meeting. He took a position near Marcus, his expression serious but supportive. Marcus felt the collective attention of the staff fixed squarely upon him, and after a brief pause, he began. "I realize that today hasn't exactly gone according to plan, for any of us," Marcus started, his voice clear, authoritative, yet compassionate. "But the truth is, this kind of day needed to happen. Because what occurred this morning isn't isolated. It's a symptom of a much larger issue, one we've likely overlooked for far too long." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Several employees exchanged glances, others stared at the tabletop, unsure where Marcus was going with this. "Every customer who enters Elite Auto Gallery," Marcus continued, "comes here expecting a premium experience. And they deserve exactly that, regardless of how they dress, the color of their skin, or the assumptions any of us might make. I walked in today looking casual intentionally to see what someone who doesn't fit our usual expectations might experience." The room remained silent, but the energy shifted perceptibly, reflective, introspective. Marcus let his eyes travel slowly around the table. What happened today revealed something critical. Our biases, conscious or not, affect how we treat people. Nicole's actions today were visible to everyone. But how many others here have thought similarly, even if you haven't said it out loud? A young sales associate raised his hand hesitantly, prompting Marcus to nod in acknowledgement. "Go ahead." "Mr. Bennett, most of us never meant to be unfair. Sometimes when people come in, we just guess if they're serious or not. I know that sounds wrong now, but it's the truth." Marcus offered a faint, understanding smile. "You've just hit the core of the issue. Assumptions are easy to make, but they're incredibly damaging. Every person who walks through those doors deserves our respect and attention, period. Their financial status, their clothing, their race, none of these should ever determine how we engage with them." He saw a few heads nod slowly, understanding beginning to bloom in the room. Marcus pressed on, his voice becoming more purposeful. Starting today, we're implementing mandatory training focused on bias recognition, diversity, and inclusion. It's time we tackle these issues openly, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Nicole raised her hand cautiously, drawing the room's attention. Marcus nodded, encouraging her to speak. "Mr. Bennett," she said, her voice clearer now, determined. "I want everyone to know how truly sorry I am for my behavior. I realize how harmful assumptions can be. I've learned a tough lesson today, and I intend to do better, to help others do better too." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Nicole. Accountability takes courage, and your willingness to speak openly is an important first step." James spoke next, his deep voice carrying a supportive confidence. "Marcus has brought us together because we're more than just salespeople. We're ambassadors for what Elite Auto Gallery represents: respect, fairness, and integrity. From now on, we need to reflect those values every single day." There was a quiet murmur of agreement throughout the room. People seemed more at ease now, sensing that this wasn't merely a reprimand, but rather an invitation to build something better together. Marcus leaned slightly forward, his voice softening but still carrying an undeniable authority. "Let me be clear. Mistakes aren't fatal, but failing to learn from them can be. I expect each of you, myself included, to commit to making this dealership a place where anyone can feel welcomed, appreciated, and respected." The team listened intently, heads nodding. Nicole's eyes met Marcus's once more, conveying a silent promise. "Today wasn't about pointing fingers," Marcus concluded gently. "It was about confronting truths, understanding our responsibilities, and becoming better, individually and as a team. I believe deeply in the people here. I wouldn't have invested in this dealership if I didn't." A wave of visible relief washed across faces. Marcus's tone had shifted from criticism to inspiration, and the staff seemed to embrace it. He stood straight, his gaze scanning each individual briefly, making a subtle but unmistakable connection. "Thank you all for being honest, open, and willing to learn. Change starts right now. Let's make Elite Auto Gallery the standard for excellence, not just in sales, but in character." As he stepped away from the table, applause rose spontaneously, quiet but genuine, spreading through the room. Even Nicole clapped softly, her eyes brightening with renewed hope. Marcus watched the team disperse slowly, sharing thoughtful conversations among themselves. James approached him, smiling warmly. "You handled that beautifully, Marcus," James said quietly. "You've given them something to aspire to." Marcus returned the smile, grateful for the support. They just needed to know someone believes in them enough to expect better. In the weeks that followed, Elite Auto Gallery underwent a profound transformation. Marcus Bennett's promise of change wasn't mere rhetoric, it became a tangible reality. The dealership buzzed with fresh energy, and the staff worked diligently, driven by a newfound purpose. Mandatory training sessions began immediately, focused on recognizing and confronting biases, respecting diverse customers, and fostering genuine inclusion. Marcus himself participated actively, setting the standard that everyone, regardless of their position, had room to grow. At first, the sessions were uncomfortable. Employees confronted realities about themselves that weren't always pleasant. But Marcus knew genuine growth required stepping into discomfort. Nicole embraced the training with surprising openness, becoming one of its most enthusiastic participants. She often shared her experiences candidly, recounting the humbling moment with Marcus to illustrate how easily assumptions could cloud judgment. One afternoon, Marcus passed by Nicole's office and noticed her sitting quietly, reviewing sales records. He knocked gently on the open door, and she looked up, startled, then smiled warmly. "Marcus, come in. I was just looking over last month's numbers," she said. "You were right. Since we changed our approach, sales are actually higher than ever." Marcus stepped inside, leaning against the doorway with a pleased expression. It turns out respect and fairness are pretty good business strategies, huh? Nicole chuckled softly. Yeah, who knew? Her smile faded into a thoughtful expression. Marcus, I never really thanked you properly for giving me another chance. You didn't have to do that. Marcus regarded her thoughtfully. Everyone deserves an opportunity to change. Real leadership isn't about punishment. It's about empowering growth. You've embraced that wholeheartedly. Nicole nodded, her voice sincere. You've changed how I think about everything. Not just customers, but my coworkers, my friends, even strangers. It feels good to treat people without assumptions. Marcus smiled warmly, proud of her progress. Keep it up, Nicole. You're helping to set a new standard here. As Marcus left Nicole's office, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The dealership wasn't just performing better, it had become a genuinely positive environment. Sales were thriving, reviews glowing, but what mattered most to Marcus was something less tangible. The pride and dignity that now resonated throughout Elite Auto Gallery. A month after initiating the changes, Marcus received an unexpected visit. A young woman dressed casually entered the showroom, examining a sleek new SUV. Rather than waiting to see if she was approached, Marcus observed quietly from afar. Nicole immediately approached her, her demeanor warm, inviting, and completely genuine. Good afternoon, Nicole greeted her cheerfully. I'm Nicole. Welcome to Elite Auto Gallery. How can I assist you today? The young woman smiled hesitantly. I'm just looking around, really, but I have some questions about this model. Nicole smiled brightly. Of course, let me show you some features. Marcus watched discreetly, noting Nicole's transformation. No assumptions, no hesitation, just genuine respect. He walked away quietly, satisfied. Later, as the day drew to a close, Marcus addressed the entire team once more, gathering them briefly in the showroom. Their faces were alert and attentive, a marked shift from their earlier uncertainty. 6 weeks ago, Marcus began, we had a difficult conversation. But from discomfort comes growth, and the progress I've seen here is extraordinary. He paused, looking around proudly. Every one of you has stepped up to create an environment of respect and inclusion. It shows not just in sales figures or reviews, but in the very way you treat people. His voice softened, sincerity deepening. Real success isn't measured in sales alone, it's defined by integrity and respect. You've all embraced that vision wholeheartedly. There was spontaneous applause, genuine and appreciative. Marcus smiled, gesturing gently to quiet them. I want to leave you with one thought, Marcus continued, making eye contact with each employee. What we've built here is special. Let's protect it, nurture it, and never forget that how we treat people matters more than anything we sell. The team broke into applause once more, louder this time. After the meeting ended, Marcus walked outside, breathing deeply in the warm Scottsdale evening air. The dealership glowed behind him, bright lights shining through its windows. James joined him quietly, handing Marcus a cup of coffee. Feels good, doesn't it? James asked softly. Marcus nodded, accepting the coffee gratefully. It does. Better than I could have imagined. James glanced back at the showroom, where employees lingered in conversation, smiling and energized. You didn't just change the dealership, Marcus. You changed people. Marcus considered James's words, warmth spreading through him. Not from pride, but gratitude. He had achieved something more valuable than mere profits. He had created an environment of genuine dignity and respect, a place where everyone, customer or employee, felt truly valued. Change starts small, James, Marcus said finally, his voice quiet but steady. But the ripples it creates can travel farther than we imagine. James smiled knowingly. Indeed they can. Together, they stood silently for a moment, reflecting. The journey had been challenging, but Marcus knew the hardest work was behind them. They had built something meaningful, lasting, and deeply human. This was success that truly mattered. Success defined not by how much they sold, but by how many lives they positively touched along the way. What is lesson of this story? 1. Never judge someone based solely on appearances. People are more than what they wear or how they initially seem. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. 2. Real leadership fosters change through respect and understanding. True strength comes from teaching, inspiring, and giving second chances rather than punishing or humiliating others. 3. Change starts from within. To create a better environment, whether at work or in everyday life, we must challenge our own biases first and actively choose fairness and respect. 4. How we treat people defines who we truly are. Success isn't measured by profits or possessions alone, but by the positive impact we leave on those around us. Inspired by this powerful story? Share this video, subscribe, and join our mission to spread respect and kindness, because real change starts with you.